This is early summer, and today's the day that I'm gonna bring the garden to you in snippets. So starting off with the pergola area that we've seen grow over the last few weeks into a tropical delight. So I'm gonna be going around the garden, and follow me. Hope you enjoy. We're starting off with the bananas, or the banana patch here, which I've had going for 4 years, coming into the 5th year. And yes, there's been many bunches over that time, and currently we have 2 bunches. This one has been a very good one, nice and big for the cold temperate climate, so that'll be harvested soon. These are the tomato plants that have been growing for the last few weeks, and already there's clusters of tomatoes. I've got a few varieties. This is the truss, which we know, and it's coming along really well. And here is the Apollo, which are much bigger in size but growing a little slower than the truss. Each tomato is more unique. And here we have the Grossi Elise, a favorite in Melbourne. So yeah, enjoying the growth of the tomatoes in the garden. And there's stacks of them. Got about 13 plants in pots. Been doing this every year in the same area for the last 10 plus years, and it works perfectly every time. Here we have almonds on the almond tree, and number one predator is the cockatoo for these, and is usually here without fail every January. So that's the almond tree. This is a white sapote, one of 5. The first one that was planted about 6 years ago, and it's a seedling, and it's just grown. As you can see, very tall. I think it's about 4 meters. And the other 4 white sapotes are relatively young, only a couple of years old, here in pots. Just trying to see which one is better suited for Melbourne. This is the persimmon, the Fuyu variety, which this year has just blown my mind. Just amazing. So much fruit. So really happy about the persimmon this year. It's got over at least 300 fruit on it, just one tree. And that's one of 4 persimmon trees, this being the oldest one. So quite happy about that. It's going to be a fun autumn. This is the Darjen prune, and every year it's loaded with hundreds of fruit, the sweetest of plums. French prune, just stunning. Currently still growing, so you can't really distinguish it from the leaves. Everything's green. So this will be ready around February. Darjen prune, marvelous. A winner in cold climate. The apricot is almost ready. This is one of 2 apricot trees. This one is called the Story, which is usually first to ripen in Melbourne. And just like the prune, it's covered with hundreds of fruit. Don't know where to start with this one. The best year so far from the Story variety apricot. This tree is only like 5 years old. It's grown so big. This is how well tropical trees grow in the tropics, but not in Melbourne. That's cold weather, fruit abundance in Melbourne, and this is tropical fruit abundance in Melbourne, as you can see. Well, this one is only a couple of years old, but yeah, every climate is different. This is the original apricot tree I planted 15 years ago, the Moore Park, and this year it's fantastic. Again, just like any fruit tree, they take years off. This one had a couple of years off, and this year it's come back with a full load. So that's 2 apricot trees this summer that we have to get into, and that's coming up shortly. So this one is about a week or two behind the other one in ripening, which is good. This is the daisy peach, which is almost ready. A very sweet and juicy peach, and as you can see, it's fully loaded. And this was the first peach tree I planted about 14 years ago, and it's an old favorite. It's just loaded. Hundreds and hundreds of peaches. The birds get most of them if I don't put a net on. So haven't decided yet if I'll cover it, but that's the daisy peach. It's a beautiful tree, regardless of the fruit. Just a delight. That looks like it's almost ready. Still a little hard, so we're just a few days away from enjoying the peaches, the first peaches. This is a Satsuma plum. Again, one of the original trees I planted many years ago, and this one, as you can see, is coming along. Still has another month, usually ready at the end of January. And the birds, of course, have been birds, like birds, and already picked the first one way before me. So looks like this is going to get a net in about a week. So most of them are still green, but the birds are checking, and this one is also loaded with plums. This is a favorite plum, also known as the blood plum. So this is a avocado tree, which is only a couple of years old, still struggling to establish itself, but nonetheless has a few fruit on it. So as you can see, you can get fruit within the first year in Melbourne of avocado. So this is the bacon variety. Yes, it's safe for vegans. And now back to the plums. This is another plum tree, which is growing well. It's only about 4 years old, and yet has over 100 fruit on it. This one I planted mainly for pollination, for the Satsuma, to help it along, because I wasn't getting much fruit from that, and this one really helped. So they said that didn't require a pollinator, but as soon as I planted this one, wow, the other one sort of went nuts. So sometimes you do need a pollinator. So this one will be ready also around late January, early February. Check that out. Just loaded. A little sour, this one. Not my favorite. But it's good for the birds. Birds love it. Trees from spring that are pretty much done now. The good old loquat that I enjoyed in October, early November. And the cherry, which was about a week ago. That really was fun. And I got a pollinator for next year, so it can give us even more fruit. Bing cherry, which is America's most favorite cherry. So that's going to help that one there to produce even more. So thanks, guys. See you all again next spring. Here we have another plum tree, and this one is just amazing. Everyone has to try this plum at least once. It's called the green gauge. Yes, it's a green plum, and I tasted it from the neighbor and I thought, wow, this is so good. I've never tried it before, and I planted it 5 years ago, and now this is it, up against the back fence. So they've got a hedge behind there, huge hedge. So the green gauge here is doing great. It's one of those trees that flowers only every other year, and this year has been its best year by far. The fruit is still very small, hard to see because they're green. And next to it is its pollinator, and it's called the damson. And this one is, again, a little sour, not a favorite of mine. It's an English plum, but it helps out the green gauge, and the birds usually get this one anyway. These ones are really small plums. They're like the size of olives, pretty small. But once again, it's loaded of my not so favorite plum next to my favorite plum. So yeah, sometimes that's how it goes. This is a macadamia tree, which I've had for 6 years, and it's still not fruiting or flowering. Hopefully it'll do so in the near future. Waiting to see its beautiful flowers, these ones here. And as you can see, you can grow macadamia, the tree at least, no problem in Melbourne. This one grew without any effort at all. So it's already 2.5, maybe 3 meters in 5 years with no attention. Okay, these are the dragon fruits cuttings that I have in pots. I don't know why, but I seem to have a dragon fruit fetish. So we'll see how these go. Meanwhile, I've got the older cuttings in the ground, and just waiting to see how they go. So they're all staked up, and that one there is probably the most mature. Yeah. So they're the dragon fruit. It's a combination of the red ones and the yellow ones. This is an ice cream bean tree, a young one, which I bought last year, and I put in the ground only a month ago. Came out of the pot and in the ground, and wow, it's growing real quick now in summer. So looking forward to see what this does in Melbourne. In Melbourne's pretty unstable weather. So this is a longan tree, which I've had for a couple of years, growing in a pot. A very, very slow grower. So again, just waiting to see what happens every year. And we love longans. Next to it is one of 4 custard apples that I have. this one is doing really well. I've had it for about 4 years now, and it's already over 2 meters tall and just covered with flowers all over. Very unusual looking flowers, and this has to be hand pollinated, this variety, so we'll see how we do with that. I haven't had any fruit from it yet, but what I've done to attract the fruit fly is I've put apples in this little container because I love fruit. So the more fruit fly, the better chances of pollination, to save me the time and hassle of pollinating by hand. It's always loaded with flowers all summer and autumn. This is the R2E2 mango, and the oldest mango that I have. This is about 3 years old, and it's covered with fruit, as you can see. They usually fall off though when the tree is just not quite ready to grow them. So we'll see what happens this year. Every year is a challenge, and also exciting to see what kind of results we get in Melbourne with tropical trees. This is a yellow pomelo or shaddock, and it's the oldest one I have. It's been in the ground for about 3 years, and last year it gave me the first fruit. This year looks like I'm gonna have about 6 or 7 or 8 fruit. They're growing really well, so no problem with pomelo in Melbourne. This is one of 3 pomelo trees that I have in the garden. This one is a very rare treat. It's known as jujube, Chinese date tree, or Chinese date tree. Chinese date tree, yeah, that's what I said. So this is only 1 year old. Check it out. It's actually 2 years old, but I've had it for 1 year, and all this new growth that you see came in the last few weeks. So fast. Highly recommend the jujube. It's covered in fruit. And last year when I first got it, it had about 5 fruit on it. It was tiny, like a foot tall, the actual tree, and it had a few fruit. And look at it this year, it's gonna have like 100 fruit. So I'm really excited. It's covered in flowers. So jujube, where are we? Here. Here's some more bananas growing in the back. This is the Ducati variety, which some of you might know from the store. It's a much thicker banana than the regular narrow one. And I think this summer I'm going to be surprised by the first fruits. Been waiting now for 3 years, and it's already like 5 meters high. And there's a few puppies there too, so excited about the Ducati variety. This is the plantain variety. It didn't do so well last winter. It sort of died back, but the pups made it. And now the pups have taken over where their mum was, and they're growing really well. So looking forward to some plantain at some time. Here's some peaches on my dwarf peach tree. They fell on the ground because it was too heavy, and I have to tie them, literally tie them, otherwise they just snap. So that's one dwarf peach there, and this is a dwarf nectarine here. And as you can see, I've tied that as well. Just the weight of the fruit is just too much. And these two babies are fully loaded with peaches and nectarines. They only grow to 1.5 meters in height, and they're already like 8 years old. So it takes some time before they get to their full potential. This is my first dragon fruit experiment from about 3, maybe 4 years ago. And I've had to stake it up with wood because it got really heavy. It's in a pot, so that won't be moving anytime soon. I lifted it from another spot and brought it here when it was a little smaller, and now it's just going crazy with new shoots. Hopefully it'll give us some fruit this year. Here we've got some kiwis growing on the kiwi vine. This vine is about 12 years old, and about 3 years ago it collapsed because the fence fell. The weight of the fruit just brought it all down, and so I had to, well, put up a new trellis, put up metal spikes, and well, that means no fruit for a couple of years. So the abundance hasn't returned yet, but I'm pretty ready for it now. I think everything is secure. Just getting dribs and drabs of kiwis. Oh, there's a couple more up there. Yeah, not that much. Usually it gives about 200 fruit. We have the Jonathan apple tree, and needless to say, it's pretty jam-packed with fruit. So these two trees here, the Jonathan and the Granny Smith, they're pretty much the most successful fruit trees that grow in Melbourne. Yep, apples and celery, folks. Good old Melbourne. But hey, apples come in handy too. So many apples, they're literally falling on the ground, and I'm playing football with them. Still a bit small. In a month from now, they'll be huge. Alrighty. We're about halfway, I think, through the tour of the garden in early summer here in Melbourne. And what you're seeing now is another tropical tree. My passion, which is to try and grow, well, the impossible in cold Melbourne. As you can see, it's pretty much covered with young fruit. Countless of young fruit. And sounds like the neighbor's home. And look at this. Look at that. Isn't that exciting? So you can grow black sapote, chocolate pudding fruit, in Melbourne. There it is. The proof is in the pudding. Yeah. Alright, this is star fruit, carambola, which is about 3-4 years old, doing really well in Melbourne. It flowers, but no fruit yet. This is a Thai night. So we'll see how we go with this summer. Very excited. This is a Wampy fruit tree, and guess what? I might be getting my first Wampies this year. Check it out. It's covered in fruit. Just finished flowering. Fruit everywhere on the Wampy. Hopefully it's gonna look like this real soon. Black sapote in a pot, and this one is also about 3 years old, but even though it's a little stunted, I had this in the ground for the first year. Didn't do well at all. Never plant tropical trees into the ground in Melbourne, at least for 2 years. Really stunted it, but I didn't deter it from growing fruit. Check it out, such a small tree. You can barely call it a tree. It's completely covered in what looks like new fruit. So that's even more verification that black sapote definitely grows in Melbourne. A-OK. We have the pawpaw, or yellow papaya, and wow, is it doing well. This is my fourth attempt at growing papaya in Melbourne. Every year I'm learning something new. Last year I lost it due to wet feet, the year before due to frost, and the year before that to wet feet again. So it's not the temperature that gets it, it's standing water and frost. So we'll see how we go this time with a papaya in Melbourne. And here we have a guava, a Hawaiian guava, which is doing incredibly well. This was just a stick last summer in that pot, and that stick has become a tree which is ready to go in the ground. I'm going to save it for a few more months before I plant it in, and it's absolutely loaded with what looks like flowers. Literally hundreds of flowers. Not sure if it's going to fruit so early in only its third year, but we'll see what happens with this beautiful guava. There you go. This is one of six guava trees that I have, and this one by far is doing the best.